It's my feel-good breakfast show.
Welcome back. It is your feel-good breakfast show, Expresso on S3. We have snakes in studio, and it's been a very nature-filled morning. And we thought in our eco news, we are going to be focusing on our beloved trees. Once more, they are indispensable to the environment, but under attack in the form of bark stripping. Now, we are joined in studio by tree surgeon, otherwise known as an arborist, Francois Krieger. He is also the chairman of the Friends of the Adern Gardens Initiative. Now, it's great to have you here, Francois.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us. And let's get straight into it, because I don't think a lot of people are maybe even aware of this topic. And if they aren't, now is the right time to find out. So what exactly is bark stripping to start off with?
Bark stripping is the removal of bark from a tree, usually done in the most convenient way, which is off the trunk of the tree at base where it's accessible.
Okay.
And what are the consequences of stripping a tree from its bark?
Well, the bark is a corky protective layer over the vascular system. So if you remove part of the bark, you're damaging the tree's vascular system in that area. If you remove all the bark right around the trunk of a tree, it generally just kills it.
Oh, wow, okay.
Yeah.
So what is the point, and why are people even stripping bark in the first place? I mean, what is the bark even necessarily used for?
Bark is used in traditional medicine in South Africa, and I think something like 65% of South Africans make use of alternative non-Western medicine, and so there's a huge demand for the product.
Okay.
And each tree, I would imagine, has some sort of perception as to a various sort of treatment in that scene, I would imagine, right?
So there are two separate issues. The one is the removal of bark from city trees, which are exotic trees. Mainly, 99% of that is Chinese camphor. So I would call that pseudo-muti because it's not a traditional African remedy.
Yeah.
And the product is camphor oil, which is readily available in Vicks and Zamba.
Okay.
Then there's the other issue of bark stripping up in the forests, and that is for traditional medicine.
Okay, all right, I didn't even know about that, wow.
How can we, obviously this is of great concern, how can we, what intervention is needed to preserve our trees? How can we stop or prohibit this from becoming a bigger problem?
So traditionally, sangomas would go into the forest and remove a small slither of bark from a tree. However, increasingly with urbanization, the dynamic has changed, and it's actually criminal groups going into the forest and destroying large parts of the forest. The Table Mountain National Park haven't had much success in combating it, and the city of Cape Town have had very little success in combating it within the city streets. So the forest is slowly dying, and we're losing thousands of street trees. And the remedy for us as active citizens is to create a physical contamination of the product by painting the trees.
Right.
So if you paint the trees, that means it doesn't harm the actual tree, but for the person that would be interested in stripping that bark, it would be a deterrent to them.
That's exactly it, yeah.
Okay.
We are aiming to contaminate the product. And it has so far worked. The trees that we have painted have not been further bark stripped. We've done a lot of urban trees with the permission of the city of Cape Town, and we're waiting for Table Mountain National Park to reach a decision on whether we can paint the trees up in the forest, although some groups have been doing so without their permission already.
Okay, so people are taking things into their own hands.
Well, look, this is definitely something I've seen in the mountain, especially, and I've seen two sides of that argument when it comes to stripping or not, because I notice also there's these issues of, I believe it's pine trees that are sort of alien overtaking some of these indigenous trees too. So I've noticed, especially if it was in sandparks, that's a great opportunity because they own quite a bit of the natural landscape that we have in our country too, right?
So the trees that are being targeted are indigenous trees, and once the area has died from bark stripping activities, it is actually alien invasives that are colonizing those areas. And that's a huge environmental issue because it means that the forest is becoming more and more vulnerable to fire because the aliens burn readily. And we stand to lose Newlands Forest within our lifetimes if something is not done. Of that, I'm convinced.
Oh, wow. Well, Mzansi, this is an interesting conversation indeed, and one that I wasn't even aware of, and something I think we all should be listening to. But this doesn't stop here. We are going to be carrying on and finding out more about this incredible topic. So for you, Mzansi, don't go anywhere. The magic and the conservation of our wildlife will continue.
It's my feel-good breakfast show.
Oh, yes, Mzansi, welcome back at your Feel Good Breakfast Show. And what a show it's been already, diving into nature and preserving the beauty of everything that we have around us, of course, and diving into eco news right now. Now, we're focusing on our beloved trees once more, and indispensable to the environment, but under attack in the form of bark stripping. So we're going to continue our conversation with tree surgeon, otherwise known as an arborist, and he goes by the name of Francis Krieke, and he's also the chairman of the Friends of the Ardeen Gardens initiative, which is something incredible happening, but we're going to find out more about the problem we are facing right now with bark and tree stripping right now. Something I didn't even know about. This is wild.
Same here, and I think that's why conversations like this is so important to put the spotlight on it. Francois, is this a new problem, or has it always been there and people are just not taking it serious enough?
People have always used traditional medicine and they've always harvested from the forest. But I think what has changed is, well, rural-urban drift has given rise to a huge population of people using the product next to a very small forest. And the trees are protected by law, so the removal of bark is illegal. So what is happening is it's become criminalized. And at night, people go into the forest and they are not sangomas, they are criminals who supply sangomas. And they strip the entire trees. So the forest is now slowly dying. It's an unsustainable practice. And the effect of the forest slowly dying is that green trees are turned into dead trees. The fuel load within the forest gets higher and higher. So all over the world, Mediterranean forests are becoming more and more prone to burning because of climate change. But we're creating a cocktail of climate change and dead trees and alien invasives colonizing where the dead indigenous trees were growing. And if one was to look at it from the outside, one would say that we are creating the perfect storm for the destruction of our forests.
Oh, wow. So the way I understand it is not actually so much traditional healing that is the problem, but it's more the way the product is now sourced, right? They're almost essentially harvesting and over-exploiting the sort of the use of this material that is available to us naturally, right?
That's exactly it. There's large areas of the forest where every tree is now dead. So going forward, what we'd like to do is paint the trunks of the largest, oldest trees to try and create an area where there's a closed canopy and the harvesters would then presumably continue with their practices in the understory, taking out the younger trees. That would be more sustainable. So we aim to influence their activities through an intervention in the absence of any meaningful law enforcement to combat the problem.
Is there a way to still being able to get that element of the tree that they need, the part of the bark, without killing the tree? Is that even possible to reach that middle ground between protecting the environment but also meeting that demand?
Yes, theoretically, there's a very real way of doing that, and actually the science behind this is that the active compounds that the muti harvesters are after is more concentrated in the leaves and tips. So someone like myself could theoretically go into the forest, prune branches in a sustainable manner, and provide it to the traditional healers as a product. The present practice of stripping the entire bark off the base of the tree kills the tree, and you're left with the entire crown unutilized. So this would require a massive shift from the authorities in terms of attitude to the forests and attitude to conservation. It would be a complete breakthrough approach, but theoretically it's possible.
So there is a way to satisfy both parties without harming the actual environment?
I think so. I think we could go a lot further to satisfying the demand for the product and do a lot less harm in the process, yeah.
More efficiently, I like that.
Yeah. And Franco, if people want to get in touch and find out more information about Friends of the Ardeen Gardens, where can they get more information?
The Ardeen Gardens have a website. The other organization that's been very involved in all of this is Tree Keepers. They're a Cape Town NGO that have been helping fund the acquisition of paint. And the other group is the Newlands Forest Conservation Group. They're also very active in engaging with Table Mountain National Park around these issues.
Okay.
Oh, well, listen, I can't thank you enough for this conversation. It's definitely educated me, and I hope for the rest of Mzansi as well. And if you guys are finding yourselves in a situation where you see something happening, of course, you can reach out. Inquiries at capetown.gov.za. And for any other advice, of course, you've heard where you can reach out and find out more and get yourself educated on preserving the magic of our country.